My grandmother ruled our family with silence and fear. After her death, we uncovered secrets so dark, I'm not even sure who she really was. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania, but my roots are in Eastern Europe. My grandmother came to the United States after World War II. No one knew exactly how or where exactly. They said that she fled the Soviet regime, saved herself from the communists, that all her relatives died, and she miraculously survived. She told this story often, with pathos, with emotion, but each time, differently. One time, she said that she walked through the mountains barefoot. Another, that she hid in a barn with 2 children, who were allegedly later taken away. A third, that she was saved by an American soldier whom she fell in love with, but he died before arriving in the States. Each version sounded like a fairy tale, and the older I got, the more I doubted it. My father did not often talk about his childhood, but when he did share his memories, his voice changed. It became somehow dull, as if he was describing someone else's life. He said that in their house, you couldn't laugh after 8 o'clock at night, that he once woke up laughing on TV, and his grandmother pulled the TV out of the socket, dragged it outside, and smashed it with a sledgehammer. He told how on Sundays they had breakfast in complete silence because his grandmother believed that sound in the house opens the door to the devil, that he had to hold his fork with both hands so that it wouldn't shake, because his grandmother considered shaking hands a sign of weakness, and she despised weakness. She didn't beat me, my father said. She was smarter. She punished with silence. For weeks, she could not say a word, just look. That look, it was worse than any belt. You probably noticed that I never mentioned my grandfather. And this is no accident. We know nothing about him, no photographs, no letters, not even mentions. It's as if he never existed. The official version that my grandmother gave my father was this: he died in the war. Only what war, where, and when, she did not specify, and she never said his name. He was not even listed in the documents. When my father tried to question her as a teenager, she just looked at him without blinking and said, "Your father is a topic that is not discussed." My parents and uncle tried not to remember their childhood at family celebrations. In general, as a child, it was strange to me that we almost never visited my grandmother, although she lived only half an hour away from us. But when I once asked my father directly, he just grinned and said, "Your grandmother, she survived. And how much it cost her, it is better for you not to know." We did not talk about it. It was as if fear was sewn into the structure of our family. And as strange as it may sound, my grandmother controlled us through silence, through a look, through awkwardness. I remember one incident that has forever been etched in my memory. It was my uncle's birthday. He was turning 50, and the whole family had gathered at our house. Grandma was already approaching 80, but she looked stronger than all of us. She came in a black dress, as if it was not a celebration, but a funeral. And she sat in the corner as if assessing everyone present. When my uncle raised his glass and began his speech, warm, grateful, bright, Grandma stood up and interrupted him. "You don't deserve this cake, Vitali. You were a weak child. I asked God to take you away because I thought you would prevent me from surviving." Silence. Dead. My uncle was speechless. The glass slipped out of his hand and broke. No one moved. Then she sat back down and, as if nothing had happened, began to eat the chicken with her hands. The fat ran down her fingers. We pretended that nothing had happened, because there was no point in arguing with her, and my uncle, just got up and left the party. He then went to another state for 3 years. I don't know if it was related, but it was clearly imprinted in my memory that my grandmother and uncle were enemies. I grew up with these stories, not fully believing them. While my grandmother was alive, no one said out loud that she was strange. Everyone was just cautious. And when she died, silence came. But not the kind that brings peace, the kind that brings questions. I was 26. I remember the funeral well. I didn't cry. No one cried. The whole family stood there detached, as if they were strangers. After the funeral, my grandmother's house remained closed. Relatives argued about who should take care of her things. In the end, the keys came to me. I agreed naively, thinking that it was just a house, dust, old furniture, photographs on the walls. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. The house greeted me with an oppressive silence. It smelled of medicine, mothballs, and something else. Something rotten. I started in the attic. Old newspapers, chests, photo albums, nothing out of the ordinary. But one album was hidden, deeper than all of them. I opened it and found photos inside that shouldn't have been there. There were old German letters, photos, and even an ID card on which her name was completely different. Helga Köhler. And here's the most terrible thing. Among her papers was a certificate from the camp where she worked as a medical assistant. The camp was in the Czech Republic. When we showed this to my uncle, he said, "She told me that she did what was necessary to survive, and that if I ever told anyone, you won't believe how many ways she has to keep you quiet." We called the police. What they found made the local news. Not in detail, but with mention of war crimes, illegal migration after the war, and possible involvement in post-war disappearances. Her grave is empty now. Someone even knocked the headstone off. I still don't understand what exactly she was doing, but the police later confirmed. She came to the United States with false papers via Argentina, like many former collaborators. No one checked. She was a war survivor. Now that she's gone, the shadow remains. Sometimes I think fear is hereditary. It's not in the blood, it's in the silence. It's passed on when you look at an old photograph and think, what if there was real evil in that woman with the forced smile? Oh, and by the way, I personally think Grandpa did exist, but not in the way she wanted us to imagine. Maybe he knew who she really was. Maybe he tried to stop her. Maybe he tried to escape, or, and this is the darkest part, maybe he was part of her past. And when he was no longer useful, he simply disappeared. The police never found any trace of the marriage. No certificate, no records. In the immigration papers that we later submitted to the archive, my grandmother was listed as a single woman with no children. Or maybe he wasn't my grandfather at all. A guard. Or maybe a prisoner. There are too many silences in our family for this to be a coincidence. So, I don't know who my grandfather was. But I know one thing for sure. If you lived near my grandmother and knew her secrets, you either kept quiet or disappeared. Would you look for traces of my grandfather in my place? I have mixed feelings about this. Maybe I should try digging through the archives,